All right, division of complex numbers can be really difficult until you start to see the pattern of the complex conjugate. All right, so from the PowerPoint, we know that we want to multiply the numerator and denominator by the complex conjugate of 4 minus I. And that conjugate, I simply change the sign of the imaginary term. And so I have 4 plus I as my conjugate. And so again, I'm multiplying this by 4 plus I and multiply the denominator by 4 plus I. All right, so how do I multiply these? I'm going to have to FOIL the numerator and the denominator. All right, so I FOIL the numerator and I get 20 plus 5I plus 16I plus 4I squared. On the denominator, I get 16 plus 4I minus 4I minus I squared. Okay, and my first step here is going to be to combine my I terms on the numerator and the denominator, just so I have a few less terms that I have to look at. So I have a 5I and a 16I. I can add them together and get 21I. Plus 4I squared. Now instead of writing I squared, I'm going to write negative 1. Keep in mind, I squared is negative 1. All right, and then in the denominator, I'm going to write 16 plus 4I minus 4I. What happens to those two terms? They're going to cancel. And so then I just write minus, and instead of I squared again, I'm going to write my number negative 1. Okay, so in that numerator, I actually have 20 plus 21I minus 4 when I multiply the 4 and the negative 1. And in the denominator, I end up with 16 minus 1, which gives me 16 plus 1. And so what's my final answer going to be is I get 20 minus 4, which is 16, plus 21I all over 17. Okay, and when we type this in MyMathLab, even though for me, like on the exam, that is a perfectly fine answer, a lot of times in MyMathLab, they're going to ask you to write it in true standard form, which would be my real part plus my imaginary part. All right, so keep in mind, if this answer is unacceptable and we get the little red box that says, hey, make sure you're typing it in standard form, what they're asking you is to type it in standard form where we have our real part plus our imaginary part.